Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Not Just Nintendo, a video game podcast that is about Nintendo. But it's not just Nintendo here at Not Just Nintendo, as we talk about other video games as well. And by we, I mean just me, George, the Ginger Ninja, because I am solo on this endeavor. I think I've repeated that exact same intro for literally every episode so far. This is episode 5 now, so hello everybody, how's it going? We are on episode 5, we've been doing this for like a month now. That's kind of cool. I guess it's not really that long, but it's still kind of cool, right? In a way, you know. The podcast has performed fairly well, considering it's a podcast of all things, you know. It's done pretty well. I mean, on YouTube, on Spotify, nobody listens, but that's okay. Now, I'm doing something a little bit different, a teensy bit different this episode. I have a new plan, and that plan is to not have a plan. I have no plan. There's no plan for this episode. And not that there's a crazy in-depth plan for most episodes, but there's a little plan, right? But there's not much plan this time around. We got no plan. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the YouTube channel, some stuff I plan to do on there, and I might talk a little bit about my game collection, and then probably some stuff I want to see on Switch too. I might bounce around a little bit, you know. I'm not always one to stay on topic, you could say, right? So, by the way, everybody, who's excited for Switch 2? Switch 2 presentation, anybody? 2 weeks from today, when you guys are seeing this? I'm recording this on Monday, so for me it's still 16 days, but 14 days, that's going to be hype. As far as the Switch 2 presentation thing, that is on a Wednesday, so in theory, that would be episode, 8, right? But the problem is that presentation is going to come out probably like 10 o'clock or something, and like I have school, so like I'm not going to be able to live react to that like I wanted to, and I'm also not going to be able to get an episode out soon after, so I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to try to have an extra episode, like a bonus episode, that is talking about the Switch 2 presentation, either the Thursday after, the next day, and if it happens, it'll be like early afternoon, maybe even in the morning. It'll be early on, or maybe on Wednesday night. But Wednesday's episode will be a normal episode. It won't talk about the Switch 2 at all. There will be no mention of the Switch 2 in episode 8. I think it's 8. And then there will be a bonus episode where I'm just talking about the Switch 2, which isn't ideal. You know, it's going to be a little weird for anybody listening to that episode and being like, come on, let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? But, unfortunately, because of my school situation, that's kind of what I have to do. So, unfortunately, my school does not plan around when Nintendo launches consoles, and Nintendo doesn't launch their consoles based on my school schedule, so it kind of sucks, but it is what it is, right? But I will say, I am very, very excited for the Switch 2 presentation, because, you know, the last time a console came out, I was quite young, I wasn't really following Nintendo and stuff very as much. You know, I knew quite a bit for my age, right, but I wasn't someone who, like, was, like, really as into it as I am now. I mean, heck, I'm making a podcast now about it, right, so I'm pretty into it. So, it's not every day that Nintendo just puts out a new console, you know? And for that reason, I'm very excited about Switch 2. Now, I will say, I could be more excited, right? I mean, it's a little... I think it's not great that Nintendo is just remaking another Switch. I do wish that it was completely different, right? Because I think Nintendo's always at their best when they're innovative and not iterative. But I'm sure there will still be lots of good games, probably some features or something. I'm sure there'll be something new with this thing. And at the end of the day, it'll be better than the Switch, presumably. So, I'll take it. And I probably won't complain too much the first time. If they do a Switch 3, that's where I will be very upset. I will be livid. if we get a Switch 3, because absolutely I do not want them just sticking to the same thing forever. I want new things. I want new things. You can repeat something one time, okay, but twice, no. That's a deal breaker. Can't go repeating something twice. So, I mean, I guess you could argue they kind of did it with Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, but I would say Game Boy Color is one generation, and that's actually what like Wikipedia says. That's basically what everybody agrees on. Is that Game Boy Color is an upgrade partway. It was like a regeneration refresh, is what it was. It was generation refresh instead of a new generation. But I mean, when you look at Nintendo repeating things, right? They did the NES to the Super Nintendo. You could say that that's kind of repeating. There was the Game Boy to the Game Boy Advance. That was kind of repeating. There was the DS to the 3DS. That was repeating. And then there's like the Wii to the Wii U, right? And every example, the version that was like the sequel did worse every single time. Every single time. Usually substantially worse. I mean, the Super Nintendo only sold, what, like 2/3 or so of the NES's sales. The Wii U obviously sold like 15% of the Wii sales. I think actually even a little less than that. And the 3DS was, I don't know, probably 65%. But they drop off quite substantially. And so I'm assuming the Switch 2 is going to be pretty underperforming, at least compared to the Switch 1. I mean, the Switch 1, that thing's at, like, man, I think it hit 150. I don't know. I know the PS2 for the longest time was 155 million, and then we found out just this year that it actually sold 160 million, apparently, which sounds awfully convenient as soon as the Switch was maybe going to pass it. Let's see, have they updated the Switch numbers anytime recently? No. So we're still at nearly 151 million for Switch. I do think the Switch is going to outsell the DS. The DS is at 154 million. I do think the Switch will outsell the DS, even in just the next few months. I don't know. If maybe it'll settle around the same. Um, I don't think it'll pass the DS, and then it won't pass the PS2, is my guess. But it might not even pass the DS. It might sit at like just under the DS. That's possible as well. So, anyways, Switch 2, I could definitely be more excited if it was something other than another Switch, but I'm very excited for the next 3D Mario. I hope it's not Odyssey. I hope it's more similar to like 64 and Sunshine, or even Galaxy, even 3D World. I'll take it similar to any game in the series except for 3D Land and Odyssey. Those are the ones I don't like. I'll take something like Bowser's Fury as well. That's fine. Any of that stuff, that'll be great. If it's like Odyssey, it won't be great. So I've mentioned my distaste for Odyssey before. Of course, I'm expecting some big third-party stuff. I'm not sure that I'll actually buy a ton of it on Switch, but I'll be happy that it comes. So I've got some high hopes for Switch 2. Of course, we'll get a Zelda game eventually, but it probably not a 3D one for a long, long time. Maybe we'll get a 2D one in a couple of years. Maybe we'll get some remakes. Hopefully we'll get some remakes towards the launch, I would hope, but who knows. And then, of course, I want the Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remasters or remakes or whatever they want to end up doing. And then, of course, we'll have Metroid Prime 4, which will be cool, I'm sure. So, there's a lot of stuff to be excited for when it comes to Switch 2. And I hope to be sitting here in 2 weeks, and I guess a little more for me, but 2 weeks for you guys, and be, like, absolutely ecstatic, elated even, at the presentation and talking about it with all of you. So that's the plan, but we'll see how that goes, I guess. Maybe it won't be all that exciting. I mean, I'll talk about it regardless of what happens. Hopefully it'll be super exciting, and it'll be like I'll be talking for 8 hours, and we'll see. But anyways, I guess a fun thing I could talk about, I went and I bought some video games. I don't buy video games every day or anything, but when we go on a little trip or so, I usually stop at some game stores, buy some things. And I bought some video games the other day. I am working on. If you guys don't know, actually, if you're somebody who listens to the podcast and you don't know, I collect video games, retro and modern. I collect all sorts of video games. I think I've got over 600 nowadays. It's not like a crazy amount, There's people with thousands, right? But I think it's a pretty decent amount, considering I've only been collecting for like 5 years or so. And also I'm quite young. I don't have any money, It's pretty impressive, I think. My largest collection is actually Atari 2600. I think I've got like 75, 80 games somewhere in that area. I had a spreadsheet where I had them all tracked, and that got deleted, so I need to track them all again. I'm working on filling that stuff back in. But I could do like a little collection show-off thing for the 5-year channel anniversary. For those of you that don't know, the YouTube channel is almost 5 years old. It's July 18th. Is going to be the 5-year anniversary. So I'm hoping to do some things all throughout July. I'm probably going to do like my top 50 games of all time. And if I did that, then I will likely put that in the podcast feed as well, the like audio version of that. And then there'll be like a real video as well, is my guess, is probably what I'll end up doing. But maybe I'll just make the video, I don't know. Basically, nobody's watching off of YouTube. In fact, I was checking again, see if we got any emails. Please send emails. If you're listening to the podcast, you gotta send an email. Send an email. You don't have to, I guess, but please send an email. Ask me a question. Share your thoughts on something I said. I don't care. You can complain about my take on Mario Odyssey. You can complain about my take on Super Metroid. I don't care. Whatever you want to do. You can go do whatever you want. But send me some emails to read on the show. I will read them on the show, and I will answer them. I will react to them. I'll respond to them. I guess unless there's something horrible, then I probably won't, but... Anyway, so the email address is at notjustnintendo. That is NOTJUSTNINTENDO at gmail.com. That is all one word. No spaces in there. All one word. Even though it's 3 words, but it's all one, you know what I mean. You knew what I meant. And also, certainly, if you're on YouTube, you can just comment. That works perfectly fine. You just leave a comment. If you're on Spotify, you can comment as well, although I don't think there's anybody actually on Spotify. But you can comment anyways if you want, if you're there. If you're there, let me know. Say hello if you're from Spotify. Be like, hi. And, that'll be it. That's all I have to say. And I'll be like, oh, hi. And then that'll be the entirety of me reading that email. But anyways, back to my collection. So I went on a little trip. I bought some games. I bought Captain Toad Treasure Tracker on Wii U. I've been working up a little Wii U collection. I think I've got like almost 30. I think I've got about 30 now, maybe even 31. Wii U games. Been working up a little collection because I'm a little worried that those might go up in value. You saw the big value increase of like 64, and then GameCube was the big one a few years back, right? And people are saying that the Wii value increase is coming. I don't know. I could see the Wii value increase not coming, or at least not being quite as drastic because the Wii sold so well. I guess the games really didn't sell as well, but I still think, they sold better, obviously, than, like, GameCube games, right? And even 64 games, probably. So, I do think that the Wii increase might not come, or if it does, it won't be as much. And then the Wii U price increase will probably be greatly accelerated because of the shortness of the life cycle, and because of just how abysmal it did, how abysmally it did. Because it did so bad, think about it. I mean, the best-selling game on Wii U was Mario Kart 8, and I think it sold, like 8 million or something? Which is impressive, right? I mean, it means that more people with a Wii U owned Mario Kart 8 than not, which is kind of insane. If you think about it, it's pretty crazy. But my point is that nothing sold well on Wii U. The only other game that you could say sold pretty well was like Splatoon. I think it sold like 6 or 7 million. It's not a horrible selling game. Basically everything else, if it was on Switch, would have sold awfully because, nobody had a Wii U. Now, the people that did have a Wii U bought a lot of games, but there's just so few copies of many big Wii U games, on Wii U, that is, not on Switch, but on Wii U, that I think the Wii U games will start increasing in price faster. And so I'm trying to get some of them. I'm not as worried about the ones that are on Switch, which of course is many of them, but especially the ones that aren't on Switch, I'm trying to get those before they shoot up in price, because they're fairly cheap right now. And I'd also like to get the originals of some things that have gone to Switch, because, I'm a collector, right? It's fun to have some of those things. So I've been working on my Wii U collection. I got Captain Toad Treasure Tracker yesterday. And I also got 2 NES games. I haven't bought NES games much in quite some time. I was kind of out of the loop, because I just wasn't really playing my NES games, and I'm still not gonna, but, I figured it's still cool to have them, right? And so I bought Dragon Warrior, because that's cool. It's just cool to have Dragon Warrior. If you don't know, Dragon Warrior is actually Dragon Quest, right? Everybody knows Dragon Quest. Dragon Warrior was the original name of Dragon Quest in the West. Dragon Quest in the West. Okay. That was the original name of it when it came out on NES, and then for the fourth game in the Dragon Quest series, they actually changed the name to Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest 4 was still on NES, I believe. So, first three games on NES came out as Dragon Warrior, and then the fourth game was Dragon Quest. And since then, they've stuck with that name. And like certainly nowadays, people still call Dragon Warrior 1, 2, 3 as Dragon Quest 1, 2, 3 because that's obviously like the name of the series nowadays. It's almost like Yakuza changing to Like a Dragon. You had Yakuza Like a Dragon, and you had Like a Dragon Yakuza. But anyways, so Yakuza changed its name to Like a Dragon. A similar concept there, I suppose. Although I don't know, Pirate Yakuza, that's the latest one. That doesn't have the Like a Dragon pre-title, does it? I don't think so. Um, so maybe they're dropping that again. I don't know what's going on with Yakuza. It's a bit of a mess. Oh no, it is Like a Dragon. Never mind. Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. That's kind of a weird name, isn't it? But anyways, I started going through the Yakuza games, and by started going through the Yakuza games, I mean I played 1 hour of Yakuza 0. I do intend to continue, though. And Yakuza is a weird game, man. It's very strange. But I don't know how we got from Dragon Warrior to Yakuza. But my point with Dragon Warrior is I found it a little bit cheaper than it was supposed to be. I think it was like $7. Usually Dragon Warrior is like 11 or 12. So I was like, all right, I wanted this game anyway on NES. It's a little undervalued, and it was a really clean label. I was like, ooh, nice. So that's why I grabbed Dragon Warrior, and I also got their what was the other thing? Oh, I got Mario Brothers plus Duck Hunt plus World Class Track Meet. Because I had Mario Brothers and I had Mario Brothers plus Duck Hunt, and I had Duck Hunt, but now I've got the other combo cart, the one that had 3 on it. Because again, the label was really clean and stuff. So I tend to look for good labels on my NES games. I figure, I don't get the boxes, so I figure I might as well have the labels look good. I do have a couple that don't have great labels, but if I got them, they were probably super cheap. I'm trying to think of. Oh yeah, ice hockey. I'm looking at it here. I have my NES games on the shelf above my desk. Ice hockey on the NES. I think that was a Toze one. Let me double check. I have this all written out on a spreadsheet, at least for Super Nintendo and NES, because I'm working on redoing my spreadsheet. Well, no, ice hockey was actually just a Nintendo game. But anyways, some of them were Toze on NES. But yeah, ice hockey. I have a bad label for ice hockey. Like the front of it, the top of the cartridge, I should say. The top of the cartridge, there's a little like nick on the side. I mean, it's not like terrible. You can read it, but it's missing a little chunk. The only reason I still bought that is because it was literally $1. It was at a thrift store. That thrift store closed down, I think, so that doesn't exist anymore. But it was at a thrift store, and it was like $1, and I was like, all right, let's go. I don't see NES games at a thrift store like ever, so that was pretty cool to see. Those are a little too old to be finding at thrift stores for the most part. But yeah, NES, it's cool to have some NES games here and there. I don't want the super expensive ones for the most part. I don't really want them in boxes for the most part. Obviously, if I find any NES game in a box that's cheap, I'll happily grab it. But I'm not like hunting down NES games in box because honestly, I don't even know. I'm assuming I can like check on pricecharting.com. Let's see. The Legend of Zelda. Let's see what a Legend of Zelda in box is on NES. Like how much is that worth? About $135, yeah. So that's not great. And then like let's look up Super Mario Brothers. Okay, if you want Mario Brothers, it's $225, or Mario Bros. 3. Oh, Mario Bros. 3 is only $85. That's not that bad. But my point is these things are very expensive to have NES games in box with a manual and stuff. And of course, they're going to go up in value the cleaner the box is, in better condition. So it's a little unfortunate that those are as expensive as they are, but it's not the end of the world to just have loose carts. I think loose NES carts actually look quite good. Something like 64 carts, I would like to have those in box if I could. Of course, those are also expensive, some of them. So some 64 games I might try to hunt down in box, but something like NES, I'm not too bothered because NES carts look pretty good as they are, and they have labels on the top. 64 don't. I had to like go on Etsy and order this, it's like these stickers, the whole sheet of stickers, and it's for every 64 game in North America. And so when you get a new 64 game, you stick it on the top. And they're not like super sticky or anything. It's not like they're going to ruin the cart or anything. You can take them off if you wanted, but I leave them on, and they look nice too. Like, I don't know who made them, but they look nice. So, and like advertising. But anyway, so yeah, I got some new, games for the collection. Like I said, I want to do one of those videos, like showing off my whole collection. I want to do one of those videos here. If it happens, it'll probably be in like July, maybe August if I'm a little late on it, but probably July. Other stuff for the channel, for people that are viewers of the channel. I know there's not much to view as of lately, but I'd like to get back to streaming Mario Party with viewers. I think that'd be a fun thing to do. And I'll also probably stream some Mario Sunshine. This is plans for the next few weeks starting up. And then I'm also going to work on a video, 100 Days in Animal Crossing on the GameCube. I saw Rocket Elijah as a YouTube channel. I saw he did something like that months ago, and I was like, I could do that too. It's not something like that's overdone. I think he was the only one I've seen that's done it. So I was like, you know what? I'll do that and just set like different goals or something for myself. You know what I mean? Like not have it do the same exact thing. Um, I know I am kind of copying, but if it's something that only one or two people have done, it's not a big deal. Um, I don't think it's a big deal. It's something that like if I want more of those videos made, then in theory somebody else out there probably does. Because I've watched this video, I'm like, man, I wish somebody else would do the same thing. And unless there's a lot of them, right? I'm just rambling at this point. I'm rambling. So let's talk about some games I've been playing. I'm still playing Persona 3 Reload. Persona 3 Reload, it's a great game, honestly. I am in August, for anyone who's wondering. I don't know if anybody has played. I mean, definitely people have. I don't know if anybody watching this has played Persona 3 Reload. I mean, it's not a Nintendo game, so I guess you can't go assuming, right? But Persona 3 is quite good. And Persona is an interesting series because, of course, there's so many of them. I was under the impression that I didn't have to play Persona 2, either version. But apparently they are actually good, so I'm like, fine, I have to play those two. So I've got to play both Persona 2s, I've got to play Persona 3, I've got to play Persona 4, 5, and then there's like spin-offs of 5 at least. There might even be spin-offs of 3, I'm not sure. I want to play like Metaphor Refantazio from last year, and I want to try an SMT, maybe 5 Vengeance, unless there's another one out by the time I get around to it. But my point is, as far as Persona and other stuff by Atlus that's vaguely similar, there's like a ridiculous amount of those games I've got to play, and they're very long. And so it's like, I want to play them all, but man, is it kind of, anxiety inducing. I'm like, man, I gotta like play all these games, really? Like, I'm like, okay, I'm like a third through Persona. That's great, right? And I'm like, oh shoot, but there's like 1,000 more, right? But I mean, it's nice though, right? It is cool that there's enough of those. If it was only one, I'd probably finish it and be like, oh man, I wish there was more, right? So it's cool that there's multiple, but it's one of those things where it can be a little daunting, I guess. I said anxiety inducing. I think daunting is really the word I was looking for. It can be a little daunting sometimes. But yeah, I try to have like a couple things I'm playing per console, or at least one thing per console. Like on PS5, Persona 3 Reload, and also Yakuza 0. And I'm still partway through Astrobot. I need to go back to that as well. I guess I am technically like an hour into God of War, but I'm not really playing much of that, so I probably do need to go back to that as well. But I want to finish up some of these things before I go back to that, probably. I started too many things, and now something has to pay the price, and that thing will be God of War. On Wii U, I actually don't have anything on Wii U right now. I did have Super Paper Mario on Wii, which of course I count as Wii U because I'm playing it on Wii U. I did have that I started last year, and it was like coming up to the end of the year, and I wanted to do my end of the year ranking video, and I was like, okay, do I have Brothership or do I have Super Paper Mario and a couple other games on there? Because Brothership, I had a lot of time left to go on Brothership, and I figured I wanted Brothership on my list more than I wanted Super Paper Mario on my list. So I sacrificed Super Paper Mario. I'm like, I'm just going to finish this next year, and then I played Brothership. And then, of course, Christmas came, and I got new stuff, and I got into that, and I kind of neglected Super Paper Mario, and so unfortunately for Super Paper Mario, I'm sure it's very sad. It's been sitting on my desk as something I'm playing, I should say, with quotation marks. I've been playing it for like 4 months now. It's not a great situation, but do need to go back to that. I was also thinking on Wii U of playing either Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which I just got. I was talking about that, or maybe Star Fox Guard. I picked up that not long ago. That was a few weeks back, I think. That would be a fun thing to try out too. I know Star Fox Garden, not everybody liked it. I have not beaten a Star Fox game. I've tried Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling this. I guess I could try the 64 version. That's supposed to be a lot better, so I could try that and see if I prefer that. And then maybe that'll get me into the Super Nintendo one. I don't know. I mean, there's Star Fox 2 as well, right? So there's a few of those to play. Who knows? Maybe I'll get into it, but it's not something I'm probably going to get into anytime soon. And then, of course, there's always like Star Fox Zero, right? There's Assault and there's Adventures. Um, and then really Guard is completely different. So I wanted to try Star Fox Guard because it's a tower defense game. And I think a tower defense game by Nintendo that's like a short little thing on Wii U could be kind of interesting. So I want to try it out, you know. And there's some other stuff on Wii U that I want to try out that I don't have. I have a broken copy of Pikmin 3, which kind of sucks. So I'd like to get Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Actually, Pikmin's one, a series that I want to play. I got to get Pikmin 1 and 2, the Switch port that came out, what, last year? No, 2023, sorry. Came out in 2023. There was that collection, I guess. I don't know. Does it count as a collection if there's only 2 games? I don't really know. But it was Pikmin 1 plus 2 is what it was called. And it's just that. It's Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2. I got to play that through because I don't know. I want to get into Pikmin, you know. I played a little bit of 4, played a little bit of 3 back in the day. I liked both, never beat either of them. But I want to play through the whole series. You know, it's one of those things, I want to do this top 50 games of all time. And I'm probably going to do that in July. But now I'm all here like, man, I've got so many things that I've got to finish before that, because they might make my list. But at the same time, that's why I haven't done a top 50 list yet, is because every time I'm going to, I'm like, man, but I gotta finish this first because that'll be in it. It's just one of those weird things. I need to like set a deadline for myself so I actually can get stuff done. And then the same thing for like on Switch, right? I was talking about how I have multiple games on each platform. On Switch, I've got stuff on Switch Online still. I'm playing Minish Cap. I've kind of, you know, not played in a while. Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time, I was having a lot of fun. I was like, man, maybe this game really is like a number 1 of all time. Maybe not quite, right? I wasn't quite that positive. I was like, okay, top 5 maybe, right? Maybe not quite. But then all of a sudden, I finished the Fire Temple, right? So you have to do the Earth Temple first, the Forest Temple, right? I don't know if this is spoilers. I mean, I don't think Ocarina of Time is. I don't think you can spoil Ocarina of Time much. So there was the Forest Temple, right? I did that. I did the Fire Temple instead of the Water Temple. You can do them in either order, I believe. So I did the Fire Temple. Now I have to go to the Water Temple. And the problem is I don't have... So to get to the Water Temple, you have to have the blue tunic in the Zora place so that you can, like, dive low enough to get in there, I believe. And to get that blue tunic, you either have to buy it in the store for 300 rupees, or you have to buy blue fire in Kakariko Village and unfreeze the king, and that also costs 300 rupees. And the problem is I can only hold 200 rupees because I have the adult's wallet instead of the giant's wallet. And to get the giant's wallet, you have to collect, is it 30 of those gold Skulltula spiders? You have to kill 30 of those things to, like, break the curse on the spiders in the Taos and Kakariko. And I was going through the game, and I was getting whatever spiders I found, right? But I wasn't, like, looking for spiders because, you know, I'm not playing Zelda so I can hunt for spiders, right? Like, that's stupid. It's like a little collectible. I assumed it was extra. But no, you actually have to get a certain amount to, like, progress in the game, which is completely ridiculous. Who would have thought Zelda would have become a collectathon? So I'm a little frustrated about that, and I haven't been playing. Also on Switch, I have Metroid Prime Remastered. I was working on that, and I got a little stuck. I can't even remember where I was stuck. I just didn't know where to go, and I was gonna try to work that out. Maybe even look it up if I get too stuck. I got through a lot of Metroid Prime though without getting stuck. I was a little happy about that, but then I got stuck, so I was like, okay. Those were kind of my things on Switch. I keep trying out random puzzle games and not getting very far. Like I was gonna play Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. And I got like a few levels in, and I was like, man, this gets hard, like, really fast. So I gave up on that. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll try it again. And I tried Kirby's Avalanche, which is actually the same game. If you don't know, Kirby's Avalanche and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine Kirby's Avalanche came out on Super Nintendo. Dr. Robotnik came out on Genesis and on Master System. They had a port to Master System, like a demake, I guess. The game came out on both those platforms, but with different branding. So Kirby's Avalanche and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine are actually the same game, just with different characters and different colors of the Puyo blocks. Because that's what it is. Both those games are puzzle games that are based off Puyo. So that's a fun little tidbit for you. But I was like, I'm going to try the game again. So I tried Kirby's Avalanche, that version. And again, I was like, man, this game just gets hard after a few versions. I tried Dr. Mario 64, the campaign. And again, I was like, man, this gets hard after a few levels. So I think I'm just not very good at puzzle games. Is what I'm learning. There was another one too. Oh, Pokemon Puzzle League. I tried Pokemon Puzzle League. I was like, man, this gets hard. So these puzzle games, maybe it's just that I don't want to have to do levels multiple times, and maybe I should just give up on that idea and do it because, in most games you have to retry levels multiple times, oftentimes. So maybe I just have this idea that I don't want to do it again, but I probably should just do it again. Or I just really suck at puzzle games. I don't know. It's possible too. And evidently, another thing I suck at is coming up with things to talk about. So, I guess I'm going to go back to my video game collection. I'll talk about every, console I own, and then maybe some games and stuff I have for it. So, the oldest console I own, well, I guess I should say system, right? It's not even a console. I own the Sears Telegames Pong console that was manufactured by Atari and shipped at Sears. It's like actually the original one, because of course there were a lot of Pong console clones and stuff for a good long time there. Um, but yes, the Pong console. I have the Pong console. I actually came out in 1975. So of course this is like after the Magnavox Odyssey, and I think it's after the Fairchild Channel F, or maybe not. Maybe the Fairchild was in 76, but it's not after much. Because there wasn't much other than like some arcades and stuff before the Pong console. The Pong console kind of, kicked a lot of things off, right? So it's pretty cool to have a Pong console. It's the original one. Now I will say I've played it like one time, right? Because there's not really much replayability there. I mean, I guess there is replayability, right? You could play Pong over and over again, but there's really not much to do there. I guess is really what I was trying to get across. But yeah, it is pretty cool to have that. As far as like actual consoles though, my oldest one is I think the Magnavox Odyssey 2, which is pretty cool. So, of course Magnavox, they were kind of the leaders of the home console start. The home consoles, the first home video game console was the Magnavox Odyssey, and then the second one was the Fairchild Channel F. But then I think maybe just the next one or two after that or something was the Magnavox Odyssey 2. They came out with a second one. And the Magnavox Odyssey kind of sucks by today's standards, and the Magnavox Odyssey 2 also still sucks by today's standards. But, it is kind of neat, and it's much an improvement on the Odyssey 1. I have probably about 15 or so, maybe a couple more games on the Odyssey 2. They were cartridges and everything. They look quite similar to Atari cartridges, except they have a handle. Which is definitely strange. Magnavox Odyssey 2 games, most of them, and there's like KC Munchkin as a known one, but most of the ones on Magnavox Odyssey 2 are like just sports. It'll be like, I don't know, football, soccer, and hockey all together, right? I mean, like, that's the kind of stuff you'd expect on the Magnavox Odyssey 2. Not really much better than that. We have the Intellivision. The Mattel Intellivision. I don't have the gray one. That's like the most famous one. I have like the second model or the third model or something where it's like brown, has the like wood grain on the front, kind of like the 2600 did, and then it's just brown on the top. I have that Intellivision, and I have 7 games for the Intellivision. Again, I haven't played the Intellivision. I think only once I played it. These aren't things I play much. And same with the Magnavox Odyssey 2. I think I played it one time. The Intellivision, I only have 7 games. I have Auto Racing, which is, I don't know, racing. I have the Kool-Aid Man game, which I think is the exact same as the Kool-Aid Man game on the Atari 2600, if I'm not mistaken. Then I have Tron Deadly Discs. I think it's based off the Disney movie, but I could be mistaken again. And then horse racing. Horse racing, again, I'm sure it's just horse racing. But then I have in box, actually, I think with manuals, some of these. I don't know if I have manuals for all of them. I have Donkey Kong, the Nintendo one, right? Donkey Kong, the 1981 arcade game, the 1981 hit, right? I have Donkey Kong on Atari as well, but yeah, I have Donkey Kong on a television in box. I have Burger Time, another famous arcade game, and I have NFL football, NFL football, all in box, which is pretty cool. Um, So that's probably the next oldest thing. The thing after that, the next oldest, is probably the Atari 2600. I have an Atari 2600, and with it, like I said, I have probably about 75, 80 games or so, somewhere in there. Lots of them are official ones, lots of them are Activision games, right? And there's some other ones in there too, there's some Coleco Gemini games, which there was actually a console called the Coleco Gemini. But what happened with that is it was basically just an Atari 2600. So you could play Gemini games or Atari 2600 games on it, and Gemini games were playable on the 2600. So they made the console trying to make money off people buying that because it was cheaper than the 2600, so they could play their 2600 games on it. And they also made the games hoping that people would buy their games to play on the 2600. So it was like questionably legal, but of course back then they weren't quite as strict, at least in video games, on copyright laws and stuff. So that's kind of a cool little factoid. Um, I do also have two ColecoVision games, but I don't have a ColecoVision to play them on. I do wish I had a ColecoVision. I guess a lot of people would probably expect me to have a ColecoVision. By the way, I'm just going to talk about home consoles first, and then I'll talk about handhelds later. So as far as Atari 2600, I do have like two of the I don't think they're actually the original model, but they're two of like the famous wood grain one. And then I have one that's like bigger. I think it might actually be the original VCS model instead of the 2600. I have one of those as well. I don't actually know that all three of those work. I know at least one does. And then I have an Atari 2600 Junior that is not working. The Junior is like the little bitty one that they put out years later. And that one is not working as far as I know, which is a shame. But my Intellivision and my Magnavox, all that stuff works. But I have that one Atari that doesn't work. And like I said, I haven't tested the second Atari of the famous wood grain one. Only one of those have I tested, and that one does work. And then the older version does work. I don't know if the other Atari does. As far as consoles, the next oldest, I think, would be the Famicom. Yeah, I have a Famicom from Japan. I'm sure most people know the Famicom is the Japanese version of the NES, and it's much smaller. The console itself is smaller, the cartridges are smaller, everything's smaller about it. And the controllers stick to the side of the console when you're not using them. It's a really cool thing. I bought that in South Carolina, which is pretty cool. Um, yeah, it's kind of neat to have a Famicom. I have only once hooked up the Famicom. Again, most of these things I hooked up one time to test them out and haven't hooked them up since. Of course, I also have a NES, and mine actually isn't very yellow, which is surprising. Usually those things are very yellow. But mine's not very yellow. Oh, actually, I forgot something. The Odyssey 2 is in box. I have the box, I have the manual, I have some of the styrofoam and stuff. And the Sears Tele Pong console's also in box with the manual and the foam. The Intellivision is not in box, but I do have the manuals for it, both manuals for it. I don't have the box for it, though, unfortunately. And then I don't have the box for the Famicom or the NES, or the manuals for either of those. Of course, on NES, I do have a non-official flight stick, but it was one that was quite popular. And I have a zapper, but it's the orange version instead of the gray version. And I have a power glove for the NES, which is awesome. I guess I should say for Famicom, I have 6 games. I have actually 2 Mario Brothers. Notably, there's Mario, there's Pac-Land. Pac-Land didn't come out in North America. And then there's a couple other things that aren't very important. Maybe they are to people in Japan, but I couldn't say most of them anyways. And then NES, I have exactly 30 games for it. I was talking about Dragon Warrior, and what was the other one I was talking about earlier? I don't know what I was talking about earlier. Dragon Warrior and, World Class Track Meet, Mario, and Duck Hunt. But I don't have Mario 2 is kind of a big gap in my collection. But I have some big ones. I have like Excite Bike. I have Mario 1 and 3. I have Zelda, Dr. Mario, Tetris, the Donkey Kong Classic Collection, Yoshi's Cookie. I've got some big stuff like that. TMNT, the original one. That's pretty cool to have. The Sega Master System. Sega Master System, actually, I believe that might even be older than the NES, but they're about the same time. I think it's actually the Master System is a little bit later, but for Master System, I only have two games. I have Double Dragon on the Master System and Thunderblade. The Thunderblade is like a arcade game where you're like in a helicopter flying around. I actually thought it was quite fun when I played it. The Master System is actually currently hooked up as well, which is funny. It's not at my desk where I play video games nowadays, but it's at my TV where I used to play video games. But I have not played it in a long time. I don't have the original model Master System either. I have like the second model, the slimmer one, but it's still very long and kind of wide. I guess we'll go through Nintendo stuff, then we'll come back for the other companies. For Nintendo, I have a Super Nintendo. It's quite busted up. I think it does actually work, though. But I do have one. I had a Hyperkin Retron. It was the Retron 2, which is how I used to play NES and Super Nintendo games. But that thing broke, so currently I can't actually play Super Nintendo cartridges. Or maybe I could, I don't know. I should test that Super Nintendo, see if it works. But I plan to get another Retron, probably the Retron 5, so I can play like Master System, Genesis, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and NES, Super Nintendo all in one. Maybe they even have Game Boy Advance, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, Retrons, those are pretty good. A lot of those alternatives for the original consoles kind of suck, but like Retrons are actually pretty good. So I'm thinking of getting one of those. But I do have a Super Nintendo again, it's just in horrible condition. I need to probably get another one in better condition at some point. And for the Super Nintendo, I have, I think, like 40 games or so. I have duplicates of a couple. I've got like the Donkey Kong Countries, I've got Mario World, I've got Mario Paint. I pay like $15 for Mario Paint. I've got Mario RPG. That one's actually quite valuable. And I have Ninja Warriors is my most valuable Super Nintendo game. My dad actually found that years ago, before I was born, I think. He found some Super Nintendo games for $20 in a box at Salvation Army. And some of those have gone up in value since. So one of those was Ninja Warriors. It's $150 these days for just the cart, which is pretty cool that I have that. Of course, I've got a little slip cover on it and stuff. It's protected, Don't want it busting on me. For Super Nintendo, I don't have the Japanese or the PAL versions, but I do have a cartridge from Europe. I bought it. I visited London and Bath last year. I visited France and Spain as well, but I bought Super Mario Kart on the PAL Super Nintendo while I was over there, because the cartridges look different and stuff. They look actually like the Japanese ones, so that's pretty cool. So I bought that while I was over there. And also in North Carolina, I don't live anywhere near the Carolinas, but it's funny because I've talked about buying stuff in there. I have two Super Famicom games from the Japanese version. I don't have a Super Famicom, but I have two games for it. I have Parlor something. I actually have no idea what that is, to be honest. I should probably look into that. And then I have Romancing Saga 3. And I know that sounds not great, right? Romancing Saga sounds like it's not an appropriate game. But trust me, Romancing Saga is just an RPG. Saga is actually a series of RPGs. Saga started on Game Boy as Final Fantasy Legend. Square did that. This is a Squaresoft game. Square did that a few times back then. The first Mana game is actually Final Fantasy Adventure, and the first Saga game is Final Fantasy Legend, because in the West, they wanted to put them out under the name Final Fantasy, because no other RPG was selling well in the West. The only one that would sell well in the West was Final Fantasy, so they're like, okay, if we want to put out an RPG series, we've got to attach it to Final Fantasy somehow. But Romancing Saga 3, that one didn't still have the Final Fantasy. As far as Nintendo stuff, I've got Nintendo 64 as well. That one's still in good working order and stuff. I don't actually have many 64 games. I have a few wrestling games that my dad used to have. He had a couple NASCAR games as well. And then as far as bigger stuff, I've got Banjo-Kazooie, I've got Mario 64, I've got Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing, Wave Race 64, right? Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. I have a GameCube as well, but I don't really have much game-wise for the GameCube. I guess as far as like actual big stuff, really all I've got is Sunshine and Animal Crossing. I don't think I have anything else that could remotely be considered a big deal. I've got a lot of like third-party stuff, like Spyro, Enter the Dragonfly, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, things like that. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, I've got a Wii as well. I've actually got like four Wiis. I've got a red Wii, one of the red ones that came with New Super Mario Brothers Wii, and I have a few white Wiis. One of them doesn't read discs, which isn't great, but I hacked that one. And then the red one is hacked, but there's nothing really on it. It just has the homebrew channel. And then I have two other Wiis that are both white that I don't use much. One of them actually still has some Virtual Console games on it from back in the day. It was Donkey Kong Country and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I think, and Mario Kart 64 were on there, which was cool. But yeah, I found some Wiis around. Those are pretty cheap, I've got a lot of Wii games as well. I think I've probably got like 50 or 60 Wii games. And I've got a few big things and then a lot of like third-party shovelware stuff, I've got like Animal Crossing City Folk, I've got Super Paper Mario, both Galaxies, New Soup Wii, Twilight Princess, like Wii Fit, Wii Sports, Wii Play, Super Smash Brothers Brawl, Mario Kart Wii, that kind of stuff. Of course, I've got everyone's favorite video game, Metroid Other M, which I actually bought that this year. I think it was back in January. But I've still got some big things I'm missing on Wii, though. To be fair, I need like Kirby's Epic Yarn. I need Wario Land, Shake It. There's some stuff for sure. Wii Party. And then for Nintendo consoles, I've got a Wii U. I was talking about some of my Wii U games earlier. I've got some big things. I got Rayman Legends on Wii U. I've got the Wii U version because I think that's funny. Um, a lot of my Wii U stuff is like Lego games and like Terraria. I've got a lot of junk on Wii U, but I do have like Mario Maker, Star Fox Guard, Pikmin 3 is broken, but I've got like Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, right? Everyone's favorite game. I've got Mario Kart 8, 3D World. And then, of course, on Switch, I've got a lot of the big stuff. I've got a Switch. I've got some big stuff. I've got, like, Animal Crossing and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and Odyssey and, I don't know, like, I've got, like, 40 Switch games. I've got quite a few. So that's all my Nintendo stuff. As far as other Sega stuff, I talked about the Master System, but I also have a Genesis. I have, like, the third edition Genesis, the famous one, right? Because with Genesis, I don't know. Genesis sounds stupid, but it's surely not Genocide. Um, with Genesises, they had the original model that had high definition graphics written on top. Then they put out a second version that removed that, and then they put out a third version that was quite a bit smaller. It was thinner, it was less wide and stuff. And they put out that version. That's the one that actually people bought because the other two were before it got popular. On Genesis, of course, I don't have that many on Genesis. I've got a lot of sports games, EA sports games. So I'll just say like some of the bigger stuff. I've got Taz, Escape from Mars. I've got Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. I don't have 3, I don't think, unless I've got just as a loose cart. I don't think so. I don't think I do. I think I just have 1 and 2, Sonic 1 and 2. And then I've got Sonic Spinball. I've got like Lion King and stuff as well. Super Battleship, and then most of my other stuff is sports games. Sega Saturn, I've only got 2. I've got Daytona USA, and I've got Virtua Fighter 2. I think both of those games came to Genesis, actually, as well. And then on Dreamcast, I don't have anything big. I've got Sega GT, I guess, which isn't that big, and then I've got NFL 2K1, which is obviously just a little sports game. But yes, I have a Saturn, I have a Dreamcast, I have Genesis, and a Master System. I don't have the SG-1000. Of course, there's not many of those around, so that's not that shocking. And then I don't have the Sega Game Gear either, or even like the Nomad, but the Nomad barely even counts. As far as like mainline consoles, I would say Pico doesn't count, SG-1000 doesn't count. So as far as the big stuff, the only one I need is the Game Gear. But I have all their big home consoles, so that's cool. I guess we can get into PlayStation. For PlayStation, I have a PS1, or I shouldn't say PS1 because PS1 could get confused with the little one, the like second version that they put out. But I have like the original PlayStation. For that, I don't actually have much. I have like Star Wars Phantom Menace. I have Gran Turismo 1 and 2, like a couple sports games. Nothing too big on PlayStation 1. PlayStation 2, again, nothing too big. I've got like some Gran Turismos. I've got 3 and 4, and I have like some ATV. I've got a lot of racing games on PS2, and I have a PS2 as well. I don't actually know what version because there's like 1,000 different versions of the PS2, but I've got a PS2. I have a PS3. Funny story with that. I found it in a shopping cart at a grocery store when I came out. It was just sitting there. It didn't have the cords or anything. It was like lightly raining, and we took it home, and sure enough, it worked. And it had a couple Super Nintendo games hacked onto it. But it was banned from the online servers and stuff as well, which is kind of weird. It was banned from the PSN. But I got it, and on PS3, I don't have a whole lot. I've got Gran Turismo 5 and 6. I've got Uncharted, the first one. I've got Infamous 1 and 2, Little Big Planet. That might even be it. I don't have much. And then I don't have a PS4, but I do have a PS5, and I've got some bigger things. I've got Astrobot, God of War Ragnarok, Yakuza 0. Well, this is PS4 and 5. I've got like Yakuza 0, I've got Assassin's Creed, Ezio Collection, Persona 3 Reload, I've got all 3 Spider-Men, Last of Us Part 1. I don't know, some more stuff probably. The Witcher 3, I've got, some bigger stuff there. Then on Xbox consoles, I do have a broken Xbox original. I was going to say one, but that's not right. It's an original Xbox. The clock capacitor broke, and of course that makes the whole console shot, because that's the build quality you expect from Xbox. I have a lot of Xbox original games. Some of them are loose, though. Actually, most of them are loose. A lot of them, like, my parents had. I think almost all of them my parents had, so they're like D&D stuff. They're like a couple Star Wars things, Nothing too crazy big. I guess I have, like, Morrowind. On Xbox 360, I've got a few of the, like, original Assassin's Creeds. I've got 1, 2, 3, and Brotherhood and Revelations. I also have 2 360s. Both of them work, but I only have one hard drive between the two of them. I've got Borderlands on there, Batman, Arkham Asylum, haven't played that, Bulletstorm, Dead Rising, Fable 2, I think. Some bigger stuff there as well. Oh, Halo 3 and 4, I think. And then between Xbox One and Series X, I don't have an Xbox One, but I do have a Series X. On there, I've got like the Crash Insane trilogy. I've got Crash 4. I've got Doom Eternal, Doom 2016. Not a whole lot else, to be honest. Halo Guardians, Halo 5 Guardians, Spyro Reignited trilogy, and I think like Assassin's Creed Unity. So, oh, and like Rocket League. I've got the physical for Rocket League. So yeah, those are a lot of my bigger games, a lot of my consoles and stuff. I don't know if I mentioned I have a Power Glove, which is awesome. I've got some DK bongos, right? Gotta have your DK bongos. Oh, I guess I could go through handhelds real quick. I have an original Game Boy. I actually have two, but I think one's broken. But I have two original Game Boys. I have a couple Game Boy Colors. I've got like a atomic purple one, I think is what it is. It's a purple. I've got the special edition Pokemon Game Boy Color as well. Then for Game Boy Advance, I have the purple one, and for SPs, I have both a red, I think it's like fire red and cobalt blue. Um, I have both of those. Both of them are SG or AGS 001 instead of 101. So they're the ones with the bad backlight, which kind of sucks, but it's not the end of the world. You get by. For DSs, I have a fat DS, a gray one, and I have a white DS Lite and a pink DS Lite. Both of them have broken hinges. I think the pink DS Lite might be completely broken. I think it like kind of works, but it's got black spots on the screen. It's not great, but the white one is fine, other than the broken hinge. For 3DSs, I have the Year of Luigi one broken. 3DS XL. I have a working 3DS like the Mario Red one, and then I've got two. No, I don't. I've only got one new 2DS XL. And then I guess if you count the Switch as a handheld, I've got the Switch as well. I don't think I have any handhelds that aren't Nintendo though. I'd like to have like an Atari Lynx and like a Game Gear and stuff. Oh, actually, I forgot. I have a PSP. Duh, I have a PSP. What do I have on PSP that's big? Nothing really. I don't have anything big on PSP. I guess I can go through handhelds. I've got like Super Mario Land and like Kirby's Dream Land on Game Boy. On Game Boy Advance, I've got like Fire Emblem Sacred Stones and like the Donkey Kong Country port, a couple of the Mario Advances. On DS, I've got lots of things. I got 64 DS, I've got Partners in Time, Bowser's Inside Story, New Super Mario Brothers, things like that. On 3DS, I've got Dream Team and Paper Jam and 3D Land, New Soup 2, Ocarina of Time 3D, Mario Kart 7, Smash 3DS, Mario Party Island Tour, everybody's favorite Mario Party, right? Actually, I have Mario Party DS as well and Mario Kart DS. Those are some more of the bigger things. I guess I just spent like 30 minutes talking about my collection. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to have a lot of these things that I have. I guess as far as other little things, I've got like I've got quite a few Skylanders, and I've got most of the Disney Infinity figures ever made. There's a few that I'm missing. I'm not really bothered about getting the last few. But I've got most of the Disney ones, most of the Marvel, most of the Star Wars. And then I have a few amiibos. I don't have like a ton. I've got quite a few Animal Crossing amiibo cards. And then I've got, I would say, probably 15 amiibos or so. My favorite is probably the 30th anniversary Mario one, or maybe it was 25th, actually. It might have been 25th, yeah. Or no, 30th. I think it was 30th. It was the Mario one. Yeah, 30th anniversary. I have the modern style one, not the classic style one, but it's probably my favorite amiibo. And then maybe like the Bowser's Fury in 3D World, Cat Mario, and Cat Peach. Those are cool too. Yeah, I really just didn't have much to talk about today, so I figured I'd talk a little bit about my game collection. As far as like consoles and stuff I need in my collection, I think it'd be really cool to have the Magnavox Odyssey, like the original, because that's the first game console. Fairchild Channel F would be cool, because that's the first one with cartridges. As far as Nintendo things, I need a Virtual Boy. I need a Game Boy Micro. I think that's kind of all I really need for a Nintendo. But I mean, there's other things I could have. Like, I could get the Wind Waker Wii U, and the Blue Wii, and the Black Wii. For 64, it'd be nice to have the Fantastic Series ones, and maybe the Pokemon Pikachu one with the blue and yellow. I guess it'd be cool to have a top-loading NES as well. Super Famicom. Maybe some more Game Boy colors, different colors of them. I think it'd be nice to have a AGS 101 for a Game Boy Advance SP. I'd probably get it in another color I don't have, so that I could have another color. Maybe I'd have like the Pikachu one, or maybe the NES one, the one that looks like an NES. That's probably the coolest one. That one's kind of expensive though, isn't it? For DS, I think there's like a Zelda one for DS, so that'd be cool to have. For 3DSs, there's also Zelda one of those. That'd be cool.
Of course, with handhelds, there's tons of like special editions, and they tend to be a little bit cheaper than the console special editions. I'm not really too bothered as far as non-Nintendo special editions. But as far as consoles and stuff I'm missing, I need like a Sega Game Gear and a Sega SG-1000, maybe a Pico. That'd be cool as well. As far as Xbox, I guess I could use an Xbox One, and I need a working Xbox original. For PlayStation, I'd like a Vita, and I guess a PS4, because why not? And as far as other things, it'd be kind of neat to have like a CDI, maybe some Coleco Telstars, definitely a Coleco Vision, Neo Geo TurboGrafx, stuff like that would be cool. So there's definitely a long ways to go. I mean, I could go all day for games I want, right? But I'm not going to get into much of that. Although I should say like 64 games. As far as collections I want to build, definitely want to build my 64 collection. Definitely want to build up my NES and Super Nintendo collections a little more. I guess there's, I mean, really all of them. There's nothing that I'm like super happy with. I guess like Atari, I'm pretty happy with where I am on Atari. If I like never bought another Atari game, I guess I would not be too sad. Um, but there's definitely some more I could get if I bought some more. The good news is with a lot of Atari games, they're quite cheap. So it's kind of, they're really novel to have because they're, you know, so old, right? They're so old, but they're also very cheap. So it's kind of a cool thing. And of course, sometimes you'll find Atari games like at a store. It'll be like Atari games, $2, right? And it's like, wow. But then also there's ColecoVision and there's, maybe even Magnavox Odyssey 2 and there's that kind of stuff. I guess I should mention I have an Atari 5200. I have two games, but I don't have the system. And I guess that's another thing. I want the Atari 5200. I want the 7800. I want the Jaguar, although the Jaguar is incredibly expensive. And then I guess an Atari Lynx would be cool too. So I've got a lot to do. As far as some videos I want to make, I was talking about that collection tour. I was talking about the Animal Crossing 100 Days. So those will probably be coming eventually. Again, probably as like a July thing. And I know people are still asking for the clips, best moments of the channel. And with that, I would probably do it on the 5-year anniversary. So I suppose on the topic of this Switch 2 presentation that is ever fast approaching, I can kind of talk about some of the things that I expect to see at the Switch 2 presentation. That ranges from like UI stuff I expect to see, stuff with the controllers, stuff with the games, of course, all that stuff. So for one, I'll say I think the Switch 2 is probably going to cost $400. $400? I think $400 seems right. I think $400, yeah. I guess it's a chance that they put out like a one with more storage. Um, Maybe they'll have like 400 and 450 or 350 and 400. If they could get a 350 and a 400, I think that would be incredible. Um, if they could have a console on the market for 350 in 2025, that would be insane. Um, so that would be really cool if they could do that. I do think 400. The absolute maximum is 500. There's no shot this thing costs more than 500 in my mind. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a small chance it's 600, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it's not going to be more than 500. 500 is the absolute maximum. And if it is 500, I wish they could get cheaper because Nintendo should be cheaper. They should be more accessible, right? But at the same time, you know, maybe this thing really is as powerful as some people are saying it's going to be. I mean, I hear about some of the games that are supposed to be running on this thing. I'm like, really? Like, that's crazy, you know? Like, we're supposed to get, like, Halo the Master Chief Collection. We're supposed to get, like, Forza Horizon. We're supposed to get Persona 3 Reload that just came out, like, literally last year. And, I don't know. We're supposed to get like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or sorry, remake and Rebirth. Rebirth is a PS5 game. I'm like, really? Can we really expect these things? Apparently. So I'm like, all right. And so they're supposed to be decent versions. So I'm like, okay, well, sounds good, right? Let's get on it, right? So I don't know. I mean, will those things happen? Who knows, right? It's hard to say. I'm sure we will learn some about some third-party stuff at the presentation. I imagine there has to be something huge that's coming out to kind of like, be like, hey, this is the power of this thing. Like with the Switch 1, Skyrim was one of the first games they showed for Switch 1. And it was like, oh man, Skyrim on a Nintendo thing? Oh my gosh, right? That's crazy, right? So we need something that big a deal. And I think there are very few things at this point that can have such an impact. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is the thing to be like, hey, look, Final Fantasy VII Remake coming out on Switch 2. Because, Square has come back to Nintendo on the Switch, right? Of course, there was the whole thing where Square went over to PlayStation and a lot of Nintendo fans were upset. And then, I think kind of the first sign of, there were some handheld things, a few things here and there, right? But the first sign of them really coming back was probably Cloud getting in Smash for Wii U as DLC. And then especially when Switch came out and they were putting out third party stuff on Nintendo again. I think their focus has still maybe been on PlayStation a little bit. The mainline Final Fantasies and stuff. But I think if Final Fantasy VII Remake can come to Switch too, I think Square's back, I mean, yes, they're still probably, maybe equal parts PlayStation and Nintendo, but I don't think they're just PlayStation if we can get Final Fantasy VII Remake on Switch too. I think that's pretty cool. And I think that would be a big enough thing to like be like, hey, look, this thing is powerful. I think something like a Dragon Quest, 12, I think we're on, would be big as well. Um, for Square things. I mean, certainly it'd be cool if we could get some of the Dragon Quest remakes. I mean, we got Dragon Quest 3 last year on like PS5 and Xbox. I don't think it was on Xbox actually. I think it was just PS5 and PC. And then we're getting Dragon Quest 1 and 2 this year. Maybe we'll get them on Switch 2 as well. Maybe that's why they haven't put out the release dates. Maybe they're launching with Switch 2, with Dragon Quest 1 and 2. I mean, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's definitely possible. Maybe that's why we don't know the release dates. I don't know. It'd be pretty cool. As far as big Nintendo stuff, though, I think obviously the Nintendo games are going to be the focus, right? Of course, and I want them to be the focus. I want Nintendo to mainly focus on their own stuff. Um, for Nintendo games, I am positive we will hear about the next 3D Mario. In fact, I think the next 3D Mario will be like probably the thing they talk about the most. I think the two things they're going to talk about the most, game wise, at the Switch 2 presentation are going to be, maybe three things actually. Mario Kart 9, they're going to talk about a lot. The next 3D Mario, they're going to talk about a lot. And I think they're going to talk a lot about Metroid Prime 4 as well, because we know so little, and Metroid Prime 4, surely that's coming out this year, right? I mean, surely. I don't think it's going to be at launch like a lot of people are saying. I think it's going to be like an October thing. I think what's actually likely is we get 3D Mario at launch and Metroid Prime 4 in October. But I think they could switch those around and maybe get away with it. I mean, I would think they would want something bigger than Metroid Prime 4 at launch. And I know Metroid Prime 4, you Metroid fans out there, I'm a Metroid fan now as well. I'm not quite as big as a lot of people. But, a lot of the Metroid fans out there, they're like, hey, don't go treading on Metroid and saying Metroid Prime 4 is not a big deal. But I'm sorry, Metroid Prime 4 is just not a big deal. It's not going to sell like crazy. I mean, if it's a launch game, maybe it gets 5 or 6 million, which is a lot for Metroid. It's the best-selling Metroid by far. But 5 or 6 million is nothing like what a 3D Mario would get if it launched with Switch 2, or a 3D Zelda if it launched with Switch 2, or really that's it, right? It's got to be a 3D Mario or a 3D Zelda. Those are the two things that can launch a console. Nintendo doesn't have anything else that can launch a console. Mario Kart's not launching a console, regardless of how much Mario Kart might sell. Mario Kart's not launching a console because nobody buys a console to play Mario Kart. They buy a console and then they have to buy Mario Kart, right? That's why Mario Kart sells so many copies, not because it's selling systems, but because systems are selling it. You know what I mean? Mario Kart, again, no, everybody who is like just a Mario Kart guy. Like there's those like 90-year-old grandmas and like the 5-year-old kids, the people that play like Mario Kart and just Mario Kart, right? Or people that would actually buy a console for Mario Kart, they're not going to buy a console for Mario Kart because they're perfectly content playing the old Mario Kart, right? Now, of course, it might be a somewhat of a factor in getting a console, but it's not going to be the main thing, Um, I have, there's been people out there talking about Luigi's Mansion 4. I don't think we're going to hear about a Luigi's Mansion 4. This seems too early. Like, I don't see what slot they could put that in, because you would think Luigi's Mansion 4 would be the big thing for a smaller year. And surely 2025 and 2026 are going to be pretty big years, I think. I don't know. Maybe 2026 is quieter. I think Luigi's Mansion 4 is like a 2027 thing, maybe a 2026 thing, but it's definitely not a 2025 thing. Animal Crossing, same thing. I don't think it's a 2025 thing. I think Animal Crossing could be a 2026 thing, though. It could be. It just seems weird because I don't think they would want to put it out as soon as March 2026, because that's only a year from now. I could see September 2026 because, of course, Animal Crossing has only ever came out in March or September, I believe, unless I'm crazy about that. I think those are the two, because they like to put it out right at the change of seasons, right? So you have it, right as it's warming up, and you have it right as it's cooling down. Personally, I think March is always going to be the best release for an Animal Crossing game, but I think September can also work. So is there a small chance we get Animal Crossing in September? I guess. But I would say Animal Crossing is in September 2026 or in March 2027, I think is most likely. Um, so I don't think we're going to hear about Animal Crossing. I think Animal Crossing will hear about it maybe September, but more likely as like a February or even a June 2026 thing, is when I would expect to hear about it, somewhere in that area. But yes, 3D Mario. I don't actually think it's going to be an Odyssey 2. I know people in person, I'm the video game guy. People talk to me about video games. People in person, like at school and stuff, they'll be like, Odyssey 2, right? I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to have an Odyssey 2. I think if they were going to do an Odyssey 2, it would have came out on Switch 1. I don't think Odyssey 2 is coming out on Switch 2, and I'm very happy about that because personally, not an Odyssey guy. I think Odyssey is the second worst 3D Mario game, not counting 64 DS because that's a remake, only better than 3D Land. And I know there's a lot of 3D Land lovers out there. And I know there's a lot of Odyssey lovers out there. They're just not for me. Every other 3D Mario game is fantastic. I also am not necessarily in the camp of Bowser's Fury. I know when Bowser's Fury came out, people were like, oh, this is what the next 3D Mario game is going to be. And I don't know. I think for a while there, I was like, yeah, maybe. But I think I've kind of gone back on that idea. I don't think we're going to get something like Bowser's Fury as the next 3D Mario. I think it's going to be completely different. I don't think it's going to be anything like Galaxy. I don't think it's going to be anything like Sunshine. Not anything like 64. Maybe it'll be a little bit like 64 Sunshine. But it's not going to be like Odyssey. I think it's going to be a completely new idea. And I mean, maybe this will all age poorly in a couple weeks, right? But I think it's going to be its own thing completely, and we're going to be just blown away. Like, oh my gosh, like they're doing that, really? Like, there's going to be something in it, some crazy thing that nobody would have ever expected. You know what I mean? And I mean, Odyssey was pretty crazy when it was unveiled, right? I mean, you had Mario in the city with people. You had Mario with the hat that he was jumping on. You had Mario capturing things. I mean, it was crazy, right? I mean, it was insane. Like, but like I don't think 3D World was quite so insane, Like 3D World wasn't quite so insane. 3D Land, I guess 3D Land was neat because it was on a handheld, but it wasn't crazy, right? Of course, there was less spotlight on Nintendo. Galaxy 2 wasn't crazy because we'd already had Galaxy 1. I guess maybe Galaxy 1 was the last one that was like, whoa, right? And that was 20 years ago we heard about that almost. So, it's been a long time here. Um, Odyssey is the last. I mean, okay, but I should say like Odyssey was a big deal, so I guess that's only been 7 years, right? But before then, it had been Galaxy. I do think we're gonna hear about 3D Mario. I think a decent portion of the presentation is going to be about 3D Mario, unless, of course, it's not coming out this year, which would be crazy. And then, of course, I think also a decent part of the presentation will be on Metroid Prime 4, and they'll definitely mention Mario Kart 9. I think we're probably going to hear about it Splatoon 4. I think that's kind of a given. Or maybe they don't call it Splatoon 4, maybe they call it something else. I think they'll call it Splatoon 4, but I don't know. It's possible it's something different. Um, yeah, I mean, I think this thing's got to be long. This is going to be a long presentation, right? Like, surely this thing's over an hour. Like, I don't see how they condense this. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it'll come out, it'll be like 17 minutes, Like, I don't know. But surely this thing's going to be long. I think with Switch to the C button, right? Everybody's talking about the C button. What's the C button gonna do? I don't know. like I don't know. I honestly I think there's a good chance that it is simply a menu. Like it's something system wide. It does the same thing for every game. I don't think it's just an extra button input, like some people have proposed. Like, I don't know, but I guess it could be, right? It could be. Um, I guess it's possible, or it just could be something related to the mouse functionality. I don't know. I could see something like that. Um, so I'm not really sure about the C button. I don't have tons of opinions on the C button, to be honest, as far as what will be the deal with that. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see, right? But we'll have to see, right? That's good, right? So yeah, I mean, Switch 2, man. I think it's gonna be a big deal. I think it's gonna be great. I'm very hyped for it. But I don't know. We'll see in a couple weeks' time. Other games we could see. What other games could we see? I mean, I could see like a Fire Emblem, right? They could talk. I think Fire Emblem has been a little dormant lately. I think they could talk about a Fire Emblem. I think what else could be at the start of a console? I mean, like, as much as I want to say like, oh, 2D Metroid right now, no shot, no shot. There's nothing like that. A Zelda remake. I think we'll get a Zelda remake. There'll be some sort of Zelda remake at launch, whether that's an Ocarina of Time again. If it's an Ocarina of Time, that'll be huge, right? Everybody will be like, "Oh my God, Ocarina of Time remake! No way, no way." If it's a Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, that'll be a big deal as well. Um, I know there's no shot it's like Skyward Sword, no shot it's Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom combo pack. I don't think that's happening, like some people have said. I think like a Link to the Past remake is possible, right? I think I mean, what else we got? Oracle games could be remastered. Maybe like a Minish Cap. I don't think Minish Cap's getting remastered. I think the Oracles are likely. Oracles are likely. Link to the Past is likely. Ocarina of Time is likely. Wind Waker, Twilight Princess are likely. Those are, I think, all the Zelda games that are actually likely to happen. But I mean, maybe I'm missing something. I guess like Spirit Tracks, right? But I don't know. It seems a little far fetched to assume. So I do think we'll get something Zelda at launch. If I had to put my money on it, I would say Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, or maybe just one of those two. I don't know, maybe not both. I would say that's what's most likely because I don't think we're getting an Ocarina of Time remake. I don't think we're getting a 2D Zelda remake again for a little while because I think Grezzo's probably just starting another 2D Zelda remake. Or they're just starting a whole brand new 2D Zelda, which would be great. But I wouldn't mind having a remake and then another 2D Zelda at the end of the generation. That's fine by me if they want to alternate between 2D Zelda Remake and 2D Zelda New Game. Although I guess in theory they would probably run out of remakes eventually to make, so I don't know. Maybe they work on the 3D ones too. Who knows? Um, I'm really happy with Grezzo, their work on Zelda lately with Echoes of Wisdom and stuff. I think that's been very. And Link's Awakening remake was really good as well. So I really do hope that they do something like Link to the Past or Oracles. If they do the Oracle games, I want them in the toy art style. If they do a Link to the Past, I want them to do a different art style. I don't want that same toy art style um, for Link to the Past. I want it to be something different. I'm not saying it has to be pixel art because I'm sure they're not going to do that, but I want it to be a different art style in some way. I don't know what they do, but I want it to be different. So yeah, I think those are some of the likely games we'll see. Maybe there'll be something that'll completely blow me out of the water. Um, I mean, I'd like to think that there will be, right? Maybe we'll see Wario Land, anybody, right? Donkey Kong? Donkey Kong would be big. I think we could see a Donkey Kong. I don't know, though. It seems, I don't know. Because anything Donkey Kong's probably going to be done with Retro. And, of course, Retro's a little busy at the moment, they're just a little busy. I mean, like, as far as big, like, Nintendo Studios, right? What's Intelligent Systems doing? I don't know. Maybe they're doing a Paper Mario? But I wouldn't think a Paper Mario would come out until at least next year, probably 2027. Um, Paper Mario. I can't imagine that's going to be an early. That's never been an early in a console life cycle. Originally it was always late in the console life cycle, and then they drifted over the course. Well, Color Splash was late too, but like Sticker Star was early, and then Origami King was like first half. I would say. I want to say it was quite early, but it was first half. So recently it's been a little less clear, but back in the day, right? It was always quite late in the life cycle. Oh, but then again, Intelligent Systems remade Thousand Year Door, didn't they? So, uh, surely they were making something new. Maybe like they wanted to put. I'm being hopeful here, but maybe they're like, oh, let's put Paper Mario back to the old school games, and so they went ahead and went to and remade Thousand Year Door as like a reminder of what those games are like. I doubt it, but Yeah, I guess it's possible, right? Maybe they'll do a Paper Mario 64 remake. That'd be pretty cool. But Intelligent Systems, I think they're probably just working on a Fire Emblem, to be honest. Maybe a Paper Mario, but if so, we're not going to hear about it for a while. The thing is with like Fire Emblem is like Fire Emblem's like just as much Koei Tecmo, not Tecmo Koei. It's just as much Koei Tecmo as it is Intelligent Systems anymore. I think it's actually the teams are much larger at Koei Tecmo than they are at Intelligent Systems. So like Fire Emblem is kind of made by Koei Tecmo nowadays. Like it's hard to even call that an Intelligent Systems game when like 90% of the people, maybe not 90, but like 80% of the people working on it are from Koei Tecmo. It's a little weird, but I don't know. I'm not a Fire Emblem guy. I actually haven't played any of the games ever. Um, so I'm not really sure the opinion of most. I think most people are happy with with Koei Tecmo's involvement. So I don't know. I don't think those people care too much. I think Fire Emblem fans are. To be fair, most Fire Emblem fans aren't like purists, right? Most Fire Emblem fans came about with like Awakening and then like Three Houses. I think those were really the two that brought the most people in, but I don't think there's a whole lot of Fire Emblem purists out there, so I don't think it matters too much, right? They'll take whatever they can get, right? I do want to get into Fire Emblem at some point. I'm a little like figuring out how to do that. It's not something I have lots of stuff to play, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm sure I'll get into it soon. Um, I've been getting into a lot of stuff soon, so that's been exciting. Man, I just cannot say I can't articulate my excitement for the Switch 2. We got 14 days. The next podcast episode will be like the last one until it's like right there. I mean, like I said, that Wednesday that the presentation's on, 2 Wednesdays from now. 2 Wednesdays from now, is that right? Yeah, 2 Wednesdays from now, there will be a regular episode where I don't talk about Switch. Well, I probably talk about it, but I don't talk about the presentation. Maybe I shouldn't talk about it at all because it'd be kind of weird to talk about the Switch 2, like predicting the presentation the when it's already happened. Like that'd be weird. So maybe I'll come up with a completely different topic unrelated to Switch 2 for that episode. And I'll probably make it like shorter as well, make a shorter episode, and then have the bonus episode that same day, I think is what we'll do. So next week will be normal, and then the week after will be the weird one. So in a fortnight, right? um, so that's gonna be interesting. Yeah, Switch 2, man. I'm so excited. All right, well, if you want to write into the show about how excited you are for Switch 2, you could do so at notjustnintendo@gmail.com. NOTJUSTNINTENDO, all one word, at gmail.com. The all one word's not part of the email. You can also find the links down below to my Blue Sky and the podcast's Blue Sky and its X.com account. Both of those, and the Discord server, which is for the YouTube channel, but it's for the podcast too. It's all related, right? So you can go join that as well. That would all be fun if you would do that. We can have a little community discussion over there. It'll be fun. So go check all that out. I know this is a little bit shorter of an episode, but I'm kind of running out of things to talk about. I mean, at the beginning of this episode, I was just blabbering. If anybody listened through this episode, thank you, because man, this was like not all that great an episode if we're being honest with ourselves. So, anyways, thanks again, everybody, and I will see you all next week. 14 days. 14 days. Peace.